Morning, everybody. I just dropped Jackie off for work. This is my start of my ride. Exit 23. This is where I used to live in New Hampton, New Hampshire. And this is literally all there is to eat or get gas up in this area is right here, these two gas stations. There's really nothing, especially in the wintertime. In the summertime, sometimes other places are open. But I wanted to share a few things I learned yesterday that God taught me. A lot of times He teaches me things when things are quiet and I'm by myself and I'm not listening to the radio or listening to anything specific. I was listening to one person earlier in the day mention some stuff about how right now we're sort of planting seeds excuse me we're sort of planting seeds as much as we can right now. And something that God showed me as I was driving home at lunch, there was a sign that said Potting Bench Lane, and I never noticed the sign, and I drive by it all the time. And a lot of times when that happens, God's trying to tell me something, and He kind of gave me a vision in my head that the place that we are in right now is sort of a reflection time for us to take all the things that we've learned during the past 10 or so years, and for some it might be longer than that, but the things that He's taught us about the truth behind conspiracies that are really just truths, and that we are supposed to be just planting seeds at this time. And He showed me an intricate analogy of how He says that He is the potter and we are the clay. And it's interesting that a clay pot is something that holds the soil that then holds the seed that grows. And in order to be even a pot that can hold the soil and hold the water, which is His word, you need to allow Him to mold you into the form that He wants you to be. A lot of times we'll fight the person that is trying to form us, and a lot of times that might be a human being, so we're used to fighting the people that are trying to form us into something. But the Lord God is a gentle person, and He doesn't force you to be a certain way. But if you allow Him to mold you into the shape that He knows will be best for you, and more importantly for the cause of Christ, which is to teach the world that He Himself molded Himself into the form that His Father had asked Him to be in order to live this pure life and die this pure sacrifice that the human beings of this earth needed to return back to their original place. He has done these things Himself. And in the Ascension of Isaiah, it tells you that God tells Jesus to go down into the 7 different layers of the domes that go down, and there's angels on the right and the left, and there's a throne in the center where the head angel of that dome sits. And you come back down to the bottom and there's demons fighting right before you come into our realm. The demons are up there fighting at the top of this dome. And this is corroborated in the Testament of Solomon, where the demons tell you that they are up at this point of the dome. It's where they reside. And in one of the books that I was reading yesterday, the Acts of Andrew, the demons say the same thing to Andrew that they say to Jesus. Have you come to torment us before the time? And they also mentioned in some of the books I was reading yesterday that He disguised Himself into a humble, wretched servant so that we didn't understand who He really was when He came down here. And oftentimes they would say, I see who you really are, Son of God. But even though they knew that he was the Son of God, there's something about them that didn't realize that he was like God the Father or something like that, because they say this and the devil says this and death says what the demons are saying, but they still at the same time, it's almost like they lied to themselves or something. It was some disguise that God was able to perform, where although they were knowing that he was this figure that could heal and do the things that God was doing, they just didn't see him in his exalted state, so they didn't fully grasp it. And I know that sounds weird to like even think about, but that's what they are saying. In multiple cases, the demons say, I see you, but then they say he disguised himself and we didn't really see who he truly was. And this is what God told Jesus to do when he came down here, so that he could confound the wicked and become something, a humble servant, a foot washer that could save men's souls. And if we as his servants want to do the same thing and do greater things than what Jesus did, which he said we can do, then we need to let our form, our spiritual form, be a form that it can be molded into whatever shape Christ has designed for us. And this, what I'm saying, is a very, very hard thing to do. In order for a vessel to hold the proper amount of nutrients, the proper amount of soil, the proper amount of water, so that a plant can grow, you need to allow it to be a proper vessel. And so every seed that you are planting that seems like it is pointless at this very time and place, and the people aren't listening to you, you don't understand what the future holds. And this is because we are not God. And this is what the angel says to Esdras when he asks him all these questions. I think it's Esdras, or it might have been the Apocalypse of Cedric, but they ask similar questions. I think it's second Esdras. I'm pretty positive it is in the Apocrypha, one of the 14 Apocryphal books. And regardless, what is said is that the angel says to him, if you can answer any one of these three things to me, I will answer your question. And Ezra's question is kind of like, why does God allow these evil men to run the world and do all the things that they do, basically, and all that stuff. And that was the basis of one of his questions anyway. I'm pretty sure it's in the context of this question. But he says to him, the angel says to him, if you can, call back a day that has passed. And Ezra couldn't do it. And he says, take in your hand one measure of fire if you can. And Ezra couldn't do it. And there was one other one I forget. And so if you can't bring a portion of fire into your hand, if you can't call back a day that has passed fully, not just memory, but an actual day, but God can, then you never can understand the ways of God fully. And that's just one tiny, minute aspect of this complex universe that we live in. And all we see every day are the relationships that we might have in passing, a few friends here at work or at school, the basics, food, shelter, water, things like that. And if you think about how simple that is compared to the complexity of heaven and its heavenly things, and even vast landscapes that we don't even get to see because they're beyond where we've ever lived, God is always there in those places. He's in places we could never fathom. He's the one making those ecosystems work. He's the one making those ecosystems grow daily, and all the different things that God is in charge of that we never see or never even thank him for, because we didn't know they happened. And this is just one place. There's many other places besides Earth. There's other realms. There's other places. So, breaking off from that conversation, I wanted to just talk briefly about some of the things I've read recently. One being the Acts of Andrew. He rebukes a giant snake that's 50 feet long, and it matches exactly the size of a different other snake that is in the Acts of Thomas. And this snake was the one cast out of the Garden of Eden into India. Then Thomas kills it. The snake even says that he was the one that was there, and the snake is talking, so apparently it's demon possessed as well, if not the physical form of a demon. And I don't know about anybody else, but I would be very scared of seeing a 50-foot snake that was talking. It would petrify me probably to stone. Like, in essence, I would be like just standing there shook. I don't like snakes. But Thomas had the power to rebuke it and kill it even just by his words. It made the snake suck the poison out of a child that had killed, and it burst open and died. And I have a feeling that pretty soon we're going to be seeing things that are very frightening to human beings, like giants and aliens, and that are really physical demons and things like that. And I think that we need to get our armor up and prepare for things like that to actually happen in real life. And another thing that I read is some stories about Jannes and Jambres, who it says were the greatest magicians who ever were. And I had to confirm what I had said previously, and it was true that when the waters of the Red Sea were about to fall down and go down upon Moses and the Israelites, Jannes and Jambres saw that it was going to happen, and they immediately flew up to the firmament to get away from it happening. They were so powerful, it says, that the angel Gabriel and the angel Michael couldn't do anything against them. That's how much they had learned the power of the devil. And then God had to call upon Metatron, it says, which is Enoch. When he was translated to heaven, he became the angel Metatron. And it was only through the command of God to Enoch that the waters, that Jannes and Jambres could not escape the waters, and then they were cast back down to the earth. So after everybody had seen this happen, like the Egyptians saw this happen, because then the waters went back down. After this happened, the waters were all cast back flat. Then none of the Pharaoh and the people of Egypt would go down into the waters because they saw this happen. So it was only by Gabriel turning into a white horse and going into the water himself that the Egyptians then followed that white horse and went into the water too. It wasn't like in the cartoon where the water collapsed and it went over the top of them. It was because their horses were enticed by Gabriel being a horse that went right into the water, so they didn't need to be afraid, and then all the people of Egypt went right into the water. That's what it says. And I tend to believe these things that have been removed that speak this way, because they scrubbed any mention of Enoch and Metatron, who are the same being, but in heaven they call Enoch a youth because he is a human that was turned into an angel. So they call him a youth. It's like something about being, whether we pre-existed in heaven or not, something about coming into the earth and then going back up to heaven, it like erases your memory or something like that. So you don't remember it or something, because it seems as if, why would they call him a youth otherwise? So unless our souls were born in heaven, like at some point, truly brought to understanding at an early point, so maybe he's way younger than angels that have been alive for millions of years during the heavenly war, like Michael and Gabriel and stuff like that. I have no idea, but for whatever reason, God gave Enoch more power, it seems, than Gabriel and Michael. And that would kind of make sense if you think that Jesus says that he will share his throne with us. Because if you're sharing the throne with Jesus, then that would put you above the angels that are there now. Because I've mentioned this before, but it mentions how there will be people that will be afraid of the Antichrist, and they will see that he is torturing people by putting vinegar and lime juice in their noses and ripping out their fingernails one by one. And because of this, they are afraid, and they take their gold and their silver and they run into the wilderness, and their bodies petrify there, and they will not be, he'll take their souls to him, but they will not reign and rule with him on the earth for 1,000 years during the 1,000-year reign on the earth. They'll not be allowed to do that until after the 1,000 years is over, then they can return. But because they wouldn't endure the torture, they're not allowed to be there for the 1,000-year reign. And these things I'm saying right now are the reasons I don't believe in a pre-tribulation rapture. The entire point of our positions in heaven, sharing the throne with Christ, is because of what we are allowing our human bodies to endure. It also says in other places that same like those people are people that preach the gospel and are persecuted, and people make fun of them and mock them and spit on them in the street. If nobody ends up listening to them and converting, they will be the same as if they were martyred. So there's different things that happen to each person. So I just wanted to share that. I found it was pretty interesting, some of the things that I've been reading lately. These are the same books I've always had and always read on the channel, but reading them all together is pretty profound. So hope that is interesting for everybody, some of the things I've learned the past few days. God bless you all. Take care of yourselves. Have a great day.